Okay, let's go ahead. So those of you watching, welcome and thank you for being here. This is a town hall dedicated to sharing information about the Cedar Ridge um, Fuels Reduction Project. My name is Ryan Campbell. I'm the chairman of the Board of Supervisors for Tuolumne County. I am also the District 2 representative, which includes the beautiful area that we're talking about right now around Cedar Ridge. And we're very excited to have some experts on with us today to explain a little bit about this project, why it's beneficial, how we got to this point, and why ultimately it's great news for our county, for Cedar Ridge, and for the natural environment that we all enjoy and depend on. So as I said, I'm Ryan Campbell. Also joining us is Michael Jow. He's the Research Management Staff Officer with the Stanislaus National Forest. Michael, good to see you. We have Andy Walsh, who's the Acting District Ranger for the Miwok and Summit Ranger Districts. Marcy Bumbach, she's the Resource Management Staff Officer for Miwok and Summit Ranger Districts. Byron Krempel, am I saying that right?
Krempel, yep.
Krempel, okay. Headwaters Program Manager for the and Forest Health Watershed Coordinator for the Tuolumne River Trust. We also have Liz Peterson. She's our Senior Administrative Analyst for the county and all-around expert on all things natural resources and forest management. And then Simi Kaur, right? Am I saying your last name correctly?
Carr, yeah.
Carr, okay. She's our Administrative Analyst with the county as well. We're hoping to get Julia Stevens on the line as well. She's also with the Tuolumne River Trust. So I'll go ahead and start out with Michael. Do you want to kind of give us an overview of what this project entails, how it came about, and what we can expect to see in the next weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And I'm trying to share my screen, and so I'm going to tag team this with myself, Andy, and Marcy Bombach. But before we jumped into the Cedar Ridge project, I wanted to give a broad overview of a planning effort that we're working on right now with the Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions and other stakeholders. It's called the Social and Ecological Resilience Across the Landscape Project, or SERL project, as we're referring to it. And as you can see, this planning area right here encompasses a good part of the middle fork of the Stanislaus River drainage and encompasses approximately 117,000 acres. About 92,000 of those acres are National Forest System lands, and that leaves about the other 19% of it private and other landowners. And so the overall objective of this SERL project is to increase the resiliency of the landscape to disturbances such as wildfire and insects and disease. And the hope is preparing the landscape so that we can reintroduce fire, so that we can introduce prescribed burning at a large landscape scale, as well as to prepare the landscape for fire suppression and to treat the resiliency to density and insects and disease-related mortality. And we're also planning on trying to restore some of the landscape structure. So why we're talking about SERL is just wanted to let everybody know the broader picture of where we're focusing in the next few years. And we can think of the Cedar Ridge project as one of the first components. It's a project that has already had NEPA. It's been done collaboratively, and we're actually working to implement some of the surveys and preparing contracts for treatment. And so while we're working still in the planning phase of this larger SERL project, which will only authorize treatments on National Forest System land, we're looking forward to working with other partners as we plan these treatments and the Fire Safe Council to figure out how we can look at this landscape as a whole and really meet the needs on the landscape, all lands. And so I'll just zoom in a little bit more to the specific Cedar Ridge project is the area in pink right down here that we'll be working on. And so I believe Marcy, did you want to talk about the specifics of the Cedar Ridge project? And I don't know if you need to share anything or if you want me to leave any maps up.
Sure, yeah, I'll give a project overview and description, and I do have a map, so I will go ahead and share that. Let me pull that up. If you guys can tell me when you see that. Or if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see the map.
You can see the map. Okay, so this is the Cedar Ridge project that you just saw in pink that Michael had up on the screen. So the different colors represent different types of units and different types of treatments. Oops. There we go. Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the objectives of the Cedar Ridge project are primarily to protect life and property, to improve the landscape resilience to wildfires in the vicinity of course, Cedar Ridge, Big Hill, and Twain Harte. We will reduce fire spread potential and intensity with this project, provide safer conditions for evacuations, and improve access for fire line resources to suppress wildfire when it occurs. An additional benefit, of course, is to protect wildlife habitat and forest resources that we all care about. The proposed action itself is to create what are called defensible fuel profiles, and we have those broken down into fuels reduction units, disconnected parcels, and fuel breaks. So the yellow on the map here are the larger fuel reduction units. The purple sort of corridors, lines are the fuel breaks. And these little blue disconnected parcels down here have a slightly different treatment just because there's private land, they're landlocked by private land. So defensive, oh, let me go back a little bit. The fuel reduction units are about 2,100 acres, and the sun is shifting here, and the fuel breaks are about 580 acres, give or take a few. The defensible fuel profiles will result in modified vegetation structure. So we're going to reduce the horizontal and vertical continuity, fuel continuity. So basically what that means is we'll create a more open understory by masticating or shredding shrubs and small trees. And we'll create a more open tree canopy by removing some trees so there aren't interlocking crowns. And that will result in a reduction in fire spread and intensity. So I can talk a little bit about the prescriptions, and then I'll provide a link in perhaps the chat box after I'm done for people to access the decision memo. There's a lot more details. It's like a 30 some odd page document that provides a lot more information than I'll provide tonight. Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to something I wanted to dive in front of Officer Bomback. If folks are watching and they'd like to ask questions, there's a box on the right for Q&A. You can click on that, type your question, and then we'll do our best to answer it. We're also hoping to make this, if you'd like to share this with people after we have the meeting today, we'll try and make this available to folks so they can get this information if they weren't able to be here with us today. What can you tell us about So you're talking about removing understory vegetation so that trees aren't touching, essentially.
Yes.
Is that basically? So what does that mean for the kind of work that's going to need to be done?
So a lot of the trees have interlocking crowns right now. So as an example, you'll have 3 trees next to each other. We would take out the middle tree so that there's space between the canopy, and that just reduces the potential for fire to spread from tree to tree. But even before it gets up into the canopy, reducing what we call ladder fuels, which is the shrub component in the understory in those smaller trees, removing that component will prevent the fire from moving up into the canopy. Once fire gets up into the canopy in topography like this, fire takes off and it spreads rapidly, and it's very intense. So we're trying to break up that continuity so that fire has a more difficult time spreading. Additionally, it will allow for suppression activities like aerial retardant application. On the fuel breaks, we'll have a very open canopy and very little understory vegetation. So if you need to drop retardant on that fuel break, it effectively reaches the ground, which will stop the fire spread, help to stop the fire spread.
Okay, no, did you and Michael more on that element of it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a delay.
Did you have more to go into on that project?
Oh, sure. I have a little bit more here. I'll talk about the prescriptions. Let me move some things around here. Okay, so some specifics about our fuel reduction units. We are looking to retain about 40% canopy cover. So there will still be canopy cover to provide shade and habitat for wildlife. We will remove what are called suppressed and intermediate trees. So that's when I was talking about those ladder fuels. That component in the understory contributes to ladder fuels. So we'll be removing those for the most part and keeping the largest trees. In the understory, we'll be masticating the small trees and shrubs. We will be retaining large hardwoods, so that would be your like black oak and live oak, anything over 12 inches. If there's an area that is too densely stocked with hardwoods, then we would probably remove some of those so that our desired condition is achieved. We will be retaining a few snags and down logs within those fuel reduction units. That's something that we won't be retaining in our fuel breaks. We'll remove all snags and down woody debris for effective fire management in those features.
And could you do me a favor? Are you able to zoom in on that map at all? It's a little difficult to see.
Sorry. It is a little, and it's a little fuzzy. I took this from it's in the decision memo.
Okay.
So here.
So right there in the middle is kind of the middle to the right is Cedar Ridge.
Cedar Ridge is here, if you can see my little cursor sort of hovering over it.
Okay.
And here's Mount Elizabeth over here. And then Twain Harte is southeast. It looks pretty large on the map, the Twain Harte. And out here for folks obviously familiar with the area, Grant Ridge is to the north. And then Columbia would be over here to the west.
And so what would residents expect to see over the next couple of weeks? Are they going to be seeing trucks and masticators and heavy equipment coming through there? What are some of the things to kind of get people ready for? I guess we're going to have surveyors and archaeologists and botanists and all those kind of educated folks walking through the forest as well.
Yes, so actually in the next couple of weeks, through the summer months, we'll have archaeologists out there flagging sites so that they're protected during project implementation. We also have botanists that will be surveying and flagging to protect sensitive species, as well as identifying noxious weeds so that we can treat noxious weeds. We have a noxious weed component to this project as well, which will hopefully reduce the presence of all those non-natives in the community, in the surrounding community. So as far as project implementation and masticators and equipment coming in, I believe that's going to be later this summer into the early fall after the survey work has been done.
And so can I add a little bit more about this project? I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead. Can folks hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the Forest Service did a lot of the planning work and developing some of those technical prescriptions and treatments for the ground, but the implementation of this project and including both the surveys for land lines and the archaeology surveys and the botany surveys, all that is being done in partnership with Tuolumne County and the Tuolumne River Trust and YSS. But the Tuolumne County is the ones who are actually awarding these contracts and doing the work, and we are assisting with some of that technical information and supporting that. So it's really turned out to be a great partnership where we're actively working together with Tuolumne County to implement these projects. And so a lot of the landline surveyors will be out right now, and the botanists and archaeologists, and those are all under the Tuolumne County contracts, and we're out there as well working with Tuolumne County and Tuolumne River Trust as they implement these things. So I just wanted to highlight that this project is done, and we couldn't do it without the support of Tuolumne County in the actual implementation of this project.
Yeah, and working with the Forest Service has been, I think we've really have a good relationship with our national forest, and it's really great to see. I mean, I think in years past, not every county had that kind of working relationship, and the fact that we do, and just seeing some of the stuff we've been through over the past few years. I remember, we had the quarter fire up in this very region that you're working on just last year in, I think it was June, and the feedback and the information and the communication we had with the Forest Service and Supervisor Kuiken was just phenomenal. And the different ranger districts all, shared information with the county. We shared information, and it was a really heartening to see that kind of working relationship. And I don't think we could accomplish these kind of things if we weren't working together. So it just really shows how far we've come. We also have a question. Somebody was asking if we'll be working on private land. And that's kind of an open-ended question. I guess you could speak to whether is there going to be vegetation removal on private lands, and will there be surveyors possibly walking on private lands where you might see somebody walking through your yard or down your driveway, something like that?
So Ryan, I have a little bit to add to that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
To the question about, I can speak more to kind of why the county's involved in this in the first place, but the specific question of working on private land. So no, this is exclusively a project on federal public Forest Service land. But like Ryan said, the intent is that the surveyors stay on Forest Service property, but this is why we wanted to let the residents of the area know. And we sent out a letter a couple weeks ago to notify residents that this work was going to be happening, just in case somebody steps onto private property accidentally. But I do want to let you all know too that we actually at the county we've been pursuing some fuels reduction projects for a while now. And we have some funding from CAL FIRE to do some defensible space work on private property. And we've been doing that for the past year or so. And this spring and summer, we will be actually in the Cedar Ridge area. So separate project, but you can see how they really tie together. So we will be conducting defensible space work for seniors and those with access and functional needs. And we have inspectors that have already gone out, and we hire private contractors to do the work. So the intent is that the county will sort of be doing on a separate project on the private lands, and then this larger project that we're discussing today will be on the private or the public lands, with the idea of really hoping to make Cedar Ridge as protected as possible. So. And I suppose I'll just, well, no, I'll pass it over to Ryan. How about?
No, that was a great explanation. That was better than I could have done. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason for this partnership is to cover all of our bases. And, you know, we saw with the tree mortality project years back, it was difficult to get private land and public land at the same time in the same area. And, you know, it can be frustrating when, you know, you see tree removal and everything looks great in one area, and then you go 100 feet further down the way and you see it's all overgrown. And so this is an effort to try and cover all of our bases, make this a fire safe area, and finding different resources for public and private vegetation and fuels management. And I think, you know, Liz, you know, you deserve a lot of the credit. You and then our partners with the federal agencies deserve all the credit about making this happen. So Marcy and Andy, did you want to move on? Maybe we can talk to Byron for a second.
Yeah, so I think that I'm really excited about this project because we all remember the rim fire, and we're working now very hard to restore that landscape. But this is just such a perfect opportunity, the Cedar Ridge project uniquely, or that Cyril project that Michael was already talking about on that larger scale, to take some very proactive steps and protect landscapes. And this project here with that interface with those communities, I think does a really good job of insulating communities, providing benefits to them. But then as Liz was talking about as well, I think we have a really, really significant opportunity to continue to make a more resilient landscape by continuing to tie communities in. Landscapes span boundaries between public and private, and so the more we're able to do working with fire safe councils, the River Trust, the YSS Collaborative, other partners to either make the national forest safe or our own properties as safe as well is a really big step. So that Cedar Ridge land area is right in the middle of this project, all those unique parcels, and if they're able to also do the defensible space, the fire hardening on their unique properties, it's just going to take this project and make it even more effective within the community and then across the larger landscape as well. And I'm really excited about it because I think this year we have a lot of momentum within these communities to make a safer and more resilient landscape. And this is just the tip of the iceberg about what we have upcoming.
That's great. Do we want to answer some questions? Let's see here.
Hey, Ryan, why don't you just speak briefly, if you wouldn't mind, to why are we doing this in the first place? You know, how does the Board of Supervisors in the county sort of fit in with this type of work on forest land that isn't maybe typically something that a county would be doing?
Yeah, I'd love to. So counties, so the Forest Service has the ability to get the funds and look into the archaeological sites, the natural preservation of these lands. And then the county's role is to kind of work with the residents and hire the contractors and hire experts to go out and actually do the tree removal. And so that's kind of where we join forces on this.
Yeah. And just, I'm sorry, I'm prodding a little bit here, but maybe just speak to, as the chair of the Board of Supervisors, maybe speak to, why do we care in the first place? Why does the board care? What does this matter? And maybe how does this fit into the county's priorities?
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to save the goals till after we went through some of our groups, but we can talk about that. So earlier this year, the Board of Supervisors met and we set out a series of goals that we would like to see accomplished, and things that in a general high level sense that we would like to see movement on. And the very first goal that we had set was to reduce the risk of fire and the loss of life and property due to these kind of catastrophic fires that we've seen up and down the state. Really, Tuolumne County was at the head of the spear, if you want to put it that way, in terms of the kind of damage that we can see from fires. In 2013, Tuolumne County had the Rim Fire. At that time, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was the second largest fire in the state's history. Now it's something like the 20th. We've had so many large, extremely destructive and deadly catastrophic fires in this state that we can no longer continue with the status quo and things that have doing things the way that they've been done for years. So there's a general acknowledgement about that. And so under that overarching broad goal of making this a fire safe county, well, how do we achieve that? And the very first element that I see about that is forming partnerships. More than 70% of our county's land is administered by either the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, or the state. So that's 70% of our county is administered by one of these either state or federal agencies. So we absolutely have to have partnerships with these agencies in order to make actual headway on the fire improvements. And so the next step on that is, it's great to have partnerships and it's great to have ideas about forest improvement, fire fuels removal, but these things cost money. And so finding sustainable long-term funding for these types of things has been a real goal. And that's one of the areas where we are very fortunate to have these partnerships with the Forest Service, through the California Disaster Assistance Act, through the California Climate Investment Program, where our county has been able to bring money in to make actual improvements in wildland urban interface areas, in residential areas, and in the forest itself. So those are the first two elements. The third is to foster community engagement, and that's all of you all. So that's getting people to understand where to go, who to contact, and I'll just do a plug for our Tuolumne County Emergency Connect. It's our Everbridge system. You can go on the county website and sign up for that to get notifications about evacuations, understanding what the evacuation routes are in your community, and making a plan for how to escape. And when you get that phone call, or if you get that text message to evacuate, get out. Don't hang around. Don't have second thoughts about it. You know, if you're getting a notification to evacuate, please do. So those are kind of the key elements to what are the overarching plan and some of the finer points to it. And this is kind of, I wouldn't say it's the first step. This project, we have a fair amount of experience doing forest management and fuels removal projects, but this really, I think, better than any project that we've done so far, integrates forest land management and protecting people's homes. It's not an either-or proposition in this case. We're trying to do all of it, and I'm really hopeful we'll have some support from folks, and just if you see people walking around with, surveying equipment, give them the high five. If you see guys out there swinging chainsaws, they're really doing some great work for us. And you know, coming up with this project, the area that is being targeted here has been, there are 3 or 4 of the worst areas in our county in terms of accessibility, how long it's been since they've burned, the fuel loading in the areas, and I would put this area as probably near the top of the list. So this is really a high priority area, and we're really excited to get working on it. I don't know, did anyone else have to want to add anything to that?
Sounds like no.
Okay. Did I miss anything, Liz?
No, I don't think so. Let's see here. I am getting some feedback that we should introduce ourselves as we speak. It's a little difficult for folks who are attending by phone.
That's
so
great.
I'm Liz, I'm with the county, and I just wanted to add, you know, we've been talking about and we have all these people on the meeting with us here. I just want to kind of go through briefly the roles and sort of how everything fits together and how we partner. So the county, you know, has the master stewardship agreement with the Forest Service, which gives the county the authority to do work on federal lands. This master stewardship agreement is on behalf of the Forest Collaborative Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, and the county is a member of Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, and so is the Tuolumne River Trust. And it is really their efforts over many, many years that have got us to where we are today, and why we're having so much success with acquiring funding to do these projects, as well as just the expertise and the support. So I just kind of need to mention them because they are a crucial, critical, you know, kind of capstone to this whole thing. And then the Tuolumne River Trust for these projects actually works for the county. We hired them. And so they do a lot of the project management on the ground. They help us with writing grants. They also are an invaluable partner to this whole process. So there's a lot of different roles and relationships in this whole, in all of these projects that we've been implementing, and the Cedar Ridge project is no different. And then of course there are the private contractors who we hire to actually implement the work. So it's a lot of different roles and responsibilities and people, but we're all, you know, we all share the common goal.
So did anyone else have anything to add? Otherwise, so this is Ryan Campbell, Tuolumne County Supervisor speaking. Did anyone else have anything that they would like to add, or else I'll go ahead and dive into some of the questions we have. Really, and thank you everybody that's been participating. We've got some good questions here to go over. No, okay, so I'll take it, nothing else to add, so I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. So if the trees are being removed, where does all the wood go? So Andy or
I can take that one. So it's Andy Welsh. I'm the acting district ranger for Summit and Miwok. It just depends on the prescription. So some of that, if it's masticated, sometimes it'll be nothing really left of it but shredded sort of biomass. It might be chipped, it might be piled by hand, or it could be machine piled. It just sort of depends on what the treatment prescription is for that subunit. At some point, if it's piled, either hand piled or machine piled, we'd come back and we would burn that. So ideally, the whole point is that so you're not just sort of taking it and piling it up and leaving it. You come back and we get rid of it and take that biomass out of the area.
And when it's taken out of the area, where is any of it? Do you expect any of the timber to be suitable for processing or for use in as biofuel for electric generation or other purposes?
I think we'll kick that to Marcy or Michael.
So this is Michael Joe with the Forest Service, and I'll take the first stab at that. So in general, at least the first treatments coming out, we don't expect a whole lot of material to be removed. I think the focus is really going to be on that handwork and mastication. in hand piling for treatment of those latter fuels. And then if material is able to be removed after further inspection, and if the roads are suitable, then some of that smaller material could potentially go to a biomass facility that utilizes small diameter wood. And if there are any larger products that could be into saw logs, it would really just depend on the contractor and where they might want to take that material. But at least initially, we're not. This one is mainly focused on that fuels reduction, so it's not like a larger timber sale in thinning that we're looking at right now for these treatments. But if we get out there and we do some of those fuels treatments and realize that there's still a lot of dense crowns that need treatment, then we'll look at potentially having some of that larger material removed, and in which case it would likely go to some of the local facilities, either biomass or the local mill. But we don't anticipate a massive amount of material like saw logs or anything coming out of this particular project.
And how big does so you mentioned saw logs, how big is a saw log generally speaking?
So generally it's logs that are larger than trees that we measure trees, or we talk about trees in general, diameter at breast height or 4.5 feet, if you walk up and give it a hug. And usually saw logs are larger than 10 inches in that diameter and about 10 feet in length.
The reason I
larger.
said there is a question about that somebody had asked about whether or not some of the timber processing companies that we have here locally in Tuolumne County, SPI is a big one. Are they able to retool their operation to process smaller logs? And my experience would be no, but for some of those smaller logs, there are other uses for them besides, lumber processing. They can be chipped up and dried and used as biofuel. Are there some other uses that you can think of for the smaller logs?
So I think in general right now, the smaller logs are what we've seen is mainly being removed and used for biomass energy to create energy. There are a couple other industries that we've heard that are trying to become established that might produce other in the general area that might produce other projects such as ethanol fuel, but that's still a little ways out. So there are other industries that are looking into other ways that they can utilize this smaller material, but as of right now, most of that smaller material is being removed as biomass fuel.
So another question is about, it sounds like it's kind of related to how the contracts are going to be issued for. I assume that this might be kind of a contractor related question, but it's will the project implementation be broken up into smaller sections so that local small businesses will have the opportunity to bid them? Is this going out as one bid for the entire project for removal, or how does that part of the project work?
Yeah, so this is Liz from the county. This likely will be one project, one contract that we put out. We definitely want to utilize our local contractors. We feel like that is one of the benefits that we have in Tuolumne County that a lot of other counties don't have, that also have forest, that they don't have the wood products industry like we do. So we want to keep that, healthy and vibrant. So the project itself, we believe will be manageable in size enough for a good amount of local contractors to bid on. We have had lots of local contractors do work for us on other projects that we've been implementing, and so Yeah, like currently I can just tell you, so we have a firm who's doing botanical surveys right now, and then archaeological surveys right now, and then we have the landline surveys. And the landline company is a local company. So as much as possible, we want to utilize smaller, small businesses and local folks to do the work. It's all done competitively through a request for proposal process, and that's through our website. So if you're interested, you can register on our website to be notified of when the contract will be put out for bid. So, yeah.
Ryan, you're muted.
So I'll go ahead. Yeah, so this is Ryan Campbell. I'm going to go ahead and read one of the other questions here. This all sounds good, and I'm happy that this project is happening. I have 5 acres on the south side of Cedar Ridge, and I'm interested in improving the fire resilience of my property. I'm curious if there will be other resources or programs to help residents, such as myself, take action to complement this project. And that kind of ties into the education theme of one of the priorities that we set at the outset of this. I don't know, Liz, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, sorry, I was unmuting myself. So again, Liz from the county. In my previous life, I was the Office of Emergency Services Coordinator, and by previous life, I mean a few months ago, where we were really focusing on, this type of work on the private land side. So our new Office of Emergency Services Coordinator, Dory Beats, has already begun looking at other grant opportunities to support this work, because there's a recognition that, for a long time, I think us as citizens or as residents of the county looked at the forest or the private or the public lands and thought, oh gosh, they're not managing their lands. They just need to get their act together. Well, now, not now, that wasn't exactly accurate, but now that they have really, what am I trying to say here? Our public lands partners are really doing their part to manage their lands, with the resource constraints that they have. And we, as the county and other partners, are partnering with them. And so I think it is our responsibility as private landowners now to look at our own lands and say, okay, well, what do we need to do to be a good partner with our public lands? And so as much as possible, back to the question, as much as possible, we want to support that effort especially for those folks who maybe have, some of those larger parcels that it's a bit overwhelming, or maybe who have some physical limitations, who aren't able to get to their properties, or maybe have some income restraints that they can't just go out and hire somebody to maybe trim trees or whatever might be needed. So we are definitely, as a part of supporting the board's goals, that's our role here. We are definitely going to be pursuing some grant opportunities. There's a lot of funding out there right now for this type of work. It's a really good time to be pursuing this effort. So I think, stay tuned in the next handful of months to see kind of what opportunities might be available as a private citizen and as a resident wanting to partner.
Yeah,
right.
and I think
River Trust.
Oh, go ahead, Byron.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. I do think too, we also have a lot of opportunity as private landowners. And if you're not quite sure what to do, but you have the ability to do something on your land, my first I always go to the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council website, where they're collected and amassed a lot of resources that talk about how to create defensible spaces on your own land. The opportunity we have as private landowners to take that initiative as well. They also talk about Firewise USA communities, which is where individual communities can come together to, as a community, to create some of those defensible spaces. And so I think there are a lot of really good resources out there. Council is chief among them within Tuolumne County, and they're also a part of the Yosemite Status Solutions Forest Collaborative. So there are a lot of partners who are looking at that private land side, not just the national forest, but everything else as well, that are helping us to make sure we have that broad scale picture.
Yeah, you stole my thunder there, Byron. This is Ryan Campbell again. Yeah, those were the two elements I was going to mention as well. And you cut out a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and use that as an excuse to restate. The Highway 108 Fire Safe Council that we have in Tuolumne County, and also SWIFT for South County, extremely valuable resources for getting education about managing your own lands. I have about 4.5 acres of property, and as anybody that owns, a larger parcel knows, it takes a lot of work. And you need to be strategic in how you manage the fire fuels on your own property. And so it really, the 108 Fire Safe Council is a great tool on learning how to manage your own property. And Byron, you also mentioned the Firewise communities. I was going to post the, I'll go ahead and post a link to the National Fire Protection Association that manages Fireways communities. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, I think we have 6 active Fireways communities now in Tuolumne County. Is it more than that?
It might be 7, and it might be even more than that. I'm not quite sure count at this point. Yeah.
There were 6, and I know there were like 3 or 4 more that we're working on trying to get set up. And the way you can picture a Firewise community is something like a neighborhood watch association for fire safety. So it's about taking agency over fire protection in your own communities, watching out for your neighbors. If there's somebody who's on a fixed income that can't afford to do the kind of vegetation management that they might need on their property, Firewise communities can help. So, that's really a great resource, and it's something that I think the county can also help communities take, like I said, take control of their own fire safety resources. I really wanted to get to, somebody asked a great question here. Will the county or the forest be responsible for the maintenance of the treated area? And has a plan been developed yet for maintenance of these projects? That's a great question. I think it goes to some of the history that we've had where, we'll have shaded fuel breaks built and then they're great for a couple of years and then they're overgrown again. What are we working on for plans for the future?
I can take part of that.
I was going to say, so this is Angie Walsh talking.
Yep, so Andy Walsh, Acting District Ranger. So the idea by treating that acreage and the intent with Sarah, which is that larger sort of footprint that we talked about initially, is that we can take and maintain bigger portions of the landscape, treat larger portions of the landscape with a normal, so a return to a fire variability in there. So we can actually put more fire on the landscape in a safer way, because as Marcy was talking about, with that spread and intensity being lower, we're able to kind of bite off bigger chunks. So the idea would be absolutely yes, you will see us putting more fire on the landscape after it's treated to kind of keep that maintenance up.
And I will just expand on a little bit. This is Michael Joe, the Resource Management Staff Officer for the Forest Service. And so ultimately the Forest Service is responsible for the maintenance, and we're doing this work through a stewardship agreement with the county. But that said, we're also looking at ways about how we can engage partners to continue to do this work collaboratively on National Forest System land. And the Cedar Ridge decision document actually does identify these future treatments. Like Andy said, we're trying to set the landscape up for using prescribed burning as a means to provide some of that maintenance and do it efficiently. The document also includes herbicide maintenance for fuel breaks as well. And so the idea is that you can use some of that herbicide. And while that's not included in this initial project, we're focusing first on getting those fuels treated. That is part of that future plan and strategy for maintaining these fuel breaks, is to transition and keep that brush and growth down within those fuel breaks so that we can actually maintain it. And that's something that this forest hasn't done a lot of, but it's something that other forests have done, and it really helps to lengthen the effectiveness of those fuel breaks after you treat it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So any final comments from folks? We've got about 6 minutes left. One thing I wanted to just say that part of, I think that it's not that these areas have been mismanaged or that the way everyone is thinking about the forest has changed. And it's partially informed by the fires that we've had and the way that temperatures have changed, weather patterns have changed. And so we're trying to adapt to that. And I think that the thing that has changed, the reason why you're seeing more activity in respect to managing the forest and fire safety is that the state is taking more notice of it, and the federal government is taking more notice of it, and they're actually helping us to accomplish some of these things. And I think our partners with the Forest Service have always been really strong advocates for managing the forest. I think they haven't had the support that they should have had for a long time, and so now we're seeing a little more of the support there. We're seeing more support for counties from the state for fire safety, and I think that's part of what's driving a lot of the improvements that we're seeing right now. I don't know, anybody else want to add to that or have any other comments?
I think we have Julia. She dialed in. I think she just wants to make a couple points. Maybe we can.
So Julia Stevens is restoration manager with the Tuolumne River Trust. Can you hear us, Julia?
Yes, but can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing?
All right. I'm doing good. Been trying to log in so I could participate this whole time, but I could hear you guys well. So yeah, I don't have too much to add. I feel like you guys did a really great job of covering this. I'll be helping the various contractors that are doing surveys out there, just making sure that they're on target with their objectives and what we've asked for them to do. And one thing I did want to emphasize, because I'm sure there's some worry from private homeowners, is that the land surveyors that we've contracted will be really clearly defining those private public land boundaries, so that we're 100% confident that all the work we're doing is on public land and not going to stray onto any private land. One other thing that I wanted to also mention is, because I know this is such a highly used part of our forest and a lot of people like to recreate in this part of Cedar Ridge, including myself as a resident of Upper Crystal Falls, is that just to make sure to give plenty of space to the workers as they're doing their job out there so that everybody can be safe, because people are going to be using heavy equipment and various kinds of tools out there. So if you guys can give them that wide buffer so that they don't have to worry about your safety and you are safe, that's something I would just very much encourage. And any other follow-up questions, I'm welcoming anybody to ask me. I'll be out there on the ground quite a bit myself, and I'll be happy to post my email or have the moderator post my email address for any questions that they might want to follow up with. Thanks.
Okay, and that's actually, so this is Ryan Campbell, Tuolumne Board of Supervisors. That's a good question. If somebody would like to get some more information about this or check with the progress of this project, how would they go about doing that?
Byron Krempel here from the Tuolumne River Trust. Contacting Julia and I think would be a very appropriate way to do that. We can drop our emails in the chat. We're going to be very heavily involved in this project, and so we should be able to provide pretty up-to-date information as we progress.
Okay, and so I guess they can go to, what's your website? Is it tuolumnerivertrust.org?
Tuolumne.org. Keep it simple.
Right.
My email address is pretty easy. It's julia@tuolumne.org. So, and I'll ask the moderator to post that for you guys in the Q&A column too, so you have that. Yeah, and please do reach out.
Okay, folks. Well, any other last comments, or we're right at the end point here. Any other comments? All right. If not, thank you all very much. Thank you, Michael Zhao, Andy Welsh, excuse me, Marcy Bombach, Byron Krempel, Julia Stevens, Liz Peterson, Simi, and have a great day. And I hope everyone stays safe, and we'll keep you up to date as this project progresses. Have a good evening.
Ryan, this is Julia speaking.
Oh, hey, Julia.
There is one more question that was in the Q&A. If you have time to address that, it was posted.
Okay, so we got one more question here. There is no way out of Lower Cedar Ridge for most people except Q and Mill. Will you create proper access routes out of Lower Cedar Ridge, utilizing existing roads such as the Ridge Road to the top of Mount Elizabeth, and also a route out 5 Mile Creek? So they're talking about some of the Forest Service roads that are sort of offshoots of the main route into Cedar Ridge, which is Q and Mill. What is this project going to do for those access routes?
So this is Julia.
Okay. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay, I was just going to share that this project does not touch the existing road system. It's focusing on reducing fuels, and that is not an objective of this project. So at this time, that won't be a part of the project that's already been planned and gone through the planning process.
Right. Byron Krempel from the Tuolumne River Trust here. This project scope was defined, the process for it started, I think, in 2016 or 2017. And so the process for this unique project was predefined with that decision signed in 2019. That said, we're very committed to continuing to increase safety. And once again, to go back to the Fire Safe Council, we've been working very closely with the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council to map those routes, to identify, and then also work on projects to increase the egress in and out of those communities as well. And the Fire Safe Council is actively managing projects for some fuel breaks and is committed to doing more as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, all our participants. Thank you, everyone at home watching, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, thank you so much.
Thank
you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.